Okay, business owners, you want to scale without the fear of losing your quality or your control? Welcome to Absolute Pursuit, the podcast for founders, leaders, and entrepreneurs who are ready to level up their business and life. I'm your host, Jason McDermott, and each week we're going to explore the strategies, principles, and mindset shifts that drive true leadership and success. So get ready to take the next step in your leadership journey because your absolute pursuit starts now. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Absolute Pursuit. I'm your host, Jason McDermott, and yeah, today's topic is one that every ambitious business owner needs to master, and that is scaling your business smartly without sacrificing your quality. Now, I know most of you are eager to grow your businesses, as every business owner should be, but sometimes that thought of scaling often comes with a bit of anxiety. And yes, I am guilty of that as well. So you might be asking, how can I grow quickly without overwhelming my systems or losing the quality my customers expect? This is exactly what we're going to be tackling today. We're going to break down the key principles of scaling smart, and I'm going to give you some actionable steps to streamline your operations so you can grow sustainably. And guess what? Let's dive right in. Okay, so first, we need to understand the challenge of scaling. Before we dive into the hows and the how-tos, we're going to talk about why scaling is so challenging. When most business owners think about growth, they think about more customers, some more sales, and of course, with more sales and customer comes more revenue. But the reality is that with growth comes a lot of complexity. It's not that simple. With more customers, more sales, more money. Without the right systems in place, rapid growth can create chaos. Let me give you an example of a story, and this is a well-documented case of rapid expansion of a rideshare company back in, 2010 to 2015. They were growing crazy, rapid expansion. They aggressively entered new cities and new countries, and sometimes without fully understanding the local regulations. And with this, grow at all cost approach, they created all kinds of legal battles and, made a reputation for not playing by the rules. They were growing so quickly that, that they kind of skipped a lot of onboarding processes for a lot of their drivers, which led to, inconsistent driver quality, the customer service, safety went down, they got a lot of public backlash. Make a long story short, they created chaos in your company. So this is not where you want to be. As you can see, growing without the right systems in place can damage your company reputation or put your company out of business. Truly, I know you're not a big rideshare company, but smaller companies, this can actually put you out of business if you, ruin your reputation. So I think it's important that we scale and we scale correctly. So the good news is that scaling doesn't mean you need to sacrifice quality. In fact, when done right, scaling can actually improve the quality of your service and your product. And yes, you're going to be a highly successful company. So why is it important to scale smartly? First and foremost, it protects your company's reputation. Quality is your competitive edge. That's what's separating you from your competitors. But when you scale with this in mind, you will maintain your customer satisfaction and loyalty. I always say that customer retention is one of the most important areas for a business to focus on. I do believe that it's much easier to resell to a former customer that loves you than it is to sell to a new one. So hang on to those customers, take care of them. But second, scaling smart ensures sustainability. Any business owner can hustle their way to temporary growth, but what kind of growth often isn't sustainable? This leads to burnout for you and your team and can damage your brand in the long run. When you scale strategically, you create a business that creates growth without constant firefighting and compromising on quality to get you there in the first place. All right. So now let's talk about the meat of today's episode, how you actually scale your company smartly. I'm going to give you 5 steps that you can start implementing today. So let's start with step number 1, and that's optimize your current operations. The first step is scaling. It's something that you've already been doing. Before you add more customers, and make sure your existing processes are efficient as possible. Let's look at your operations. You need to look at your operations and you need to identify those bottlenecks. I actually wrote a checklist on this. This is a good way to identify the bottlenecks in your company and streamline those operations. For example, are there areas where tasks are taking too long? Is communication breaking down? I'll give you an example of this. I've been working with a client, and we determined he had a huge bottleneck when a customer calls into his company to inquire about services. The first person that got the call would immediately transfer the potential customer to the second employee, and the second employee would take their time and gather some information, which they would end up transferring that potential customer to a third employee. And even if they got through to the third employee, which most of the time they did not, because this employee was either on the other line or was not at their desk, that when they did pick up, they didn't sound very confident in what they were selling. So make a long story short, this was a huge bottleneck for my buddy. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. So look again at your operations to identify these bottlenecks. These are areas that need to be fixed before you can add more business, more volume. One of the best ways to do this is by conducting an operational audit. It's that simple. It could be as simple as, for example, with my buddy, my client right now is, we called his business from, a number that, of course, his employees would know, and we acted like a customer. We did this numerous times, and that's how we concluded he had a bottleneck. So what you can do is you can map out each part of your business and look for the inefficiencies. This might sound daunting, believe me, it is, but it can be one of the most important things to prepare for growth. My suggestion would be is start from the beginning. Start, when a customer contacts you, you can start there. All right. So next is standardizing your processes. This is the key part of streamlining your operations. If you want to maintain quality while scaling, you need to ensure that your processes are repeatable and consistent. This means creating your standard operating procedures. That's right, SOPs. Oh, I was excited just to use my new soundboard here. But anyways, SOPs. You need to create SOPs for every crucial function in your business, whether it's onboarding a new client, managing customer support, or even handling returns. Everything you do that you think is critical, you need to have a documented process. You're probably asking me why. Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because SOPs create consistency, reduces errors, and most importantly, it makes it easier to train new members. You don't have to be the one training it, and you're training people that are consistent and they're following the guidelines. So when everybody knows exactly what needs to be done, it becomes much easier to maintain the quality even as your growth increases. Okay, so let's talk about the next one, step number 3, and that is going to be automate when possible. Automation is a powerful tool for scaling without adding a ton of overhead, and this can be very easy. But let's be clear, I'm not talking about automating for the sake of automating. I'm talking about strategic automation that frees up time for you and your team to focus on other things, other higher value tasks. Things you can do is start by identifying repetitive tasks that can be easily handled by software. This could be automating customer follow-ups, data entry, scheduling, or even parts of your marketing. The goal here is to create efficiency while maintaining or even enhancing customer experience. For example, automating customer communication can actually improve response time, which, yeah, that's right, is going to improve customer satisfaction. A specific example of automating customer communication could be using a chatbot on your website. And what a chatbot is it's basically when people ask questions, maybe in your frequently asked questions, a chatbot will answer those questions for them. For example, people could be asking, what are the business hours? What is the status of my order? How do I make a return? If you had a chat bot answering these questions for you, that is less time that you guys are going to have to spend doing it. And you can also use a chatbot to, qualify some of your leads. Get some information from a customer and you would know whether that lead is a qualified lead for your company. You can also use a chatbot to schedule appointments. This is huge. So somebody could, get online and use a chatbot and it would totally schedule an appointment for somebody. And most importantly, you don't need to use a chatbot for, your website as well. You can use it for Facebook, WhatsApp, or even through, SMS texting. But the point is you're creating a consistent communication across all your channels. All right, so by automating this customer communication, you can increase the efficiency, provide immediate answers, and improve overall customer experience, which without requiring more staff, that's the point of all this automation. So when you automate tasks, that doesn't require I can't even talk today, human interaction. You're actually freeing up the time so you guys can focus on more meaningful interactions with your customers. All right. Had a hard time spitting out that number 3, but let's talk about number 4. Invest in your team's growth. This is super important. Scaling smart is investing in your team. What you can do is you can have the best processes and the latest software that we just talked about, but if your team is not growing with your business, you're going to struggle to maintain that quality. This means providing some training, some coaching, and some resources that will empower your team at a high level. Encourage your team to take ownership in their roles and be proactive in finding solutions. Remember, everybody, as a leader, it's your job to set the vision and give your team the tools to execute on it. When your team feels supported, they're more likely to maintain the quality that you're aiming for, even as your business grows. That is huge important. Company culture. Okay, so let's talk about step number 5, and I think it's one of the most important, and that is you need to measure. You need to measure everything. Measure and adjust. The only way you're going to know if you're scaling smarter is to track your progress, analyze the data, and make the adjustments as needed. Focus on KPIs, key performance indicators, that matter for both growth and quality. This could include your customer satisfaction. Look at your Google reviews. This could include, delivery times. Look to see if things are slowing down or getting delayed. Look at your employee performances. Do you notice that performance of your employees are starting to go down? Whatever you choose to measure, be consistent and make adjustments based on the data, what the data is telling you. You can definitely tell if you're starting to see some great reviews from your customers, well, you're heading in the right direction for your quality. Scaling is a dynamic process and things will change along the way. Be open to tweaking your strategy, adopting your processes, and learning from both your successes and your setbacks. Okay, now with any major transition, there are bound to be challenges when scaling. One common challenge is feeling overwhelmed by the complexity of growth this brings. I definitely understand this. You might find yourself, facing issues you never had before, never even imagined. Like, for example, like managing a bigger team. Maybe you only had 2 employees, and now you have 25 employees. Now you're handling more customers, or even adapting to, a bigger market. Maybe you're selling newer things. The key here is to stay focused on the fundamental. Efficient processes, clear communication, and a commitment to your quality. You're not going to get everything perfect right away from day one, but that's okay. What matters is that you have a clear plan and willingness to adjust as needed, as we talked about. Okay, so another challenge is maintaining the company culture. This is kind of what we talked about earlier. It's easy for a culture to get diluted when you add more people. I personally think company culture is so important. It always starts within. That's why it's so important to be intentional about your company culture from the beginning. Communicate your core values clearly. Hire people that align with those values. You could even go over these values during a job interview. Post your company values on the wall, put it in the bathroom, put it in the break room. Make a long story short, these are the foundations of your company. Okay, so scaling smart is not a marathon, you guys. It is a sprint. I said that all wrong. Scaling smart is a marathon. It's a long game. It's not a sprint. This ain't something that's going to take over time. You got to keep this in mind. This is going to take time as you measure and you reevaluate. It's going to take a lot of patience and a lot of fine-tuning. But guess what? The reward is huge. You're not only going to be bigger, but you're going to be better and you're going to be more sustainable. All right, so let's do a quick recap. Today we talked about how to scale your business smartly without sacrificing quality. That's the most important. We talked about 5 actionable steps. We talked about optimizing current operations. We talked about standardizing processes and automating where possible, investing in your team's growth, and consistently measuring and adjusting. I think that's an important one. And remember, the goal of scaling isn't just growth, it's sustainable growth that maintains a high quality that your customers expect. So important. And by following those steps that I told you guys about, you will be well on your way to building a bigger, better, and more resistible, can't even talk. Well, for sure, maybe it is irresistible. But anyways, a more resilient business. Oh, all right, so there it was. So if today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to help. Feel free to join our free Facebook community. Oh, that's right. Our free Facebook community, Scale and Lead, where I'm going to share more business insights and strategies for your business growth, leadership, and exactly what we talked about, sustainable scaling. It's a space, you guys, that you connect with other business owners who are also working to grow their company sustainably. And if you're looking to get more hands-on guidance, keep an eye out for my upcoming workshop on streamlining operations. Details will be in that community, and you can always reach out to me. Welcome to Apps. Oh, I hit the wrong button on my coat there. Well, anyways, that is it for today's episode. Again, if you found value in our conversation, please make sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. And also join our free private Facebook community, Scale and Lead. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Absolute Pursuit. As always, keep pushing forward, scale smart, and I'll see you at the next episode.